You as the buyer are definitely in the driver's seat. Patience will definitely serve to your benefit. The reality is inventory is outpacing demand. A lot of the dealerships who did deploy greedy tactics during the pandemic, during COVID, and charged markups and just took advantage of people, they are ultimately kicking themselves right now. They're wishing they hadn't gotten rid of their loyal customers, their returning customers, the people who had been going to their dealerships for decades. The last 2 months, 1 out of 5 auto loans that were applied for were denied. Banks are clamping down because as time moves forward, the inventory levels just keep racking up at a compounding rate. They're turning away allocations because we have so many carryovers from previous model years that are just sitting unsold. But with Stellantis, if they continue moving forward as they currently are with their current trajectory, they will fail and they will teeter toward bankruptcy. And did I say $10,000 off? I meant to say $16,000 off. They no longer need as much inventory. I mean, look around. Every dealership looks like this right now. They have countless new trucks just sitting, collecting dust, even from previous years. And many of these are $15,000 off, 0% interest over 72 months. As of September 2024, we have 2.84 million available vehicles, new vehicles within the US. To go back just a little bit further, to kind of teeter into COVID times a little bit, in September of 2022, we had 1.32 million. Hey YouTube, Untamed here. So the car market crisis continues. Jeep, Ram, and Dodge are the leading offenders right now underneath the Stellantis umbrella. Stellantis is in a whole world of hurt right now, and we're going to talk through it in today's video and present some new additional stats, facts, and figures that are quite alarming for the entire car market at large. So stick with me. So many of these vehicles on this lot are marked down $10,000, $15,000, $18,000. Here we have a couple examples of Grand Cherokees, the 4xEs that are $15,000 off or a 0% interest rate over 72 months. I would argue if you were to go have a discussion with this particular dealership, there's a good chance that you can maybe even get both. Because what you see before me here is pretty common across the US. Just a whole lineup of them sitting unsold, oftentimes from last year, from 2023. Even the Grand Cherokees have gotten so astronomically expensive. Check this out. They want over $73,000 for this Grand Cherokee Trailhawk 4xE. This whole 4xE segment, they're not doing well at all. Same with the Wrangler 4xEs. And I never want to see any vehicle manufacturer flounder or suffer or even fail. But with Stellantis, if they continue moving forward as they currently are with their current trajectory, they will fail and they will teeter toward bankruptcy. This last year was a huge indicator of how bad things truly can get. Of their 14 brands underneath the Stellantis umbrella, they'll be reviewing that entire portfolio between now and 2026 and determining which of their brands need to be cut. Because at this point in time, they need to make some cuts in order to continue. Across the US, we see what you see before me right here. We have so many carryover models from the previous year just sitting unsold. A bunch of 2023 models and 2022 models that are brand new that just never sold. This is a pretty common sight, unfortunately, currently right now, which is a pretty good indicator of why Stellantis has dropped over 60% of their stock since March of this year. That's quite alarming. And to be honest, it wasn't all that long ago when you would be able to buy a Jeep Wrangler with pretty good confidence, right? So we have a Jeep Wrangler or Gladiator here in front of me and a couple other just Wranglers right next to it. Each of these have pretty substantial discounts on them. This, a few years ago, was not a thing. However, to be fair, the Wrangler in particular, a Jeep Wrangler, has gone up tremendously when it comes to their MSRP. But what do you see here? We see a $10,000 discount off of this particular one. And this particular Rubicon has a $5,000 advertised discount, but I would argue you can comfortably get that to $10,000 to match that Gladiator in a heartbeat. A large part of the problem is the pricing, right? We have seen a nearly 40% increase of MSRPs across the board, and well, Jeep, Dodge, Ram are no exception. Many of the trucks behind me here are in the $80,000 range, some of them teetering toward $90,000. But to be fair, many of these are advertised with a $10,000 off discount. There are a couple of lawsuits circling Stellantis right now. One of them being Stellantis suing the UAW, the United Auto Workers Group. They're suing the UAW because they cannot put more money into the production plants and production lines. In fact, they need to cut production line workers because they no longer need as much inventory. I mean, look around. Every dealership looks like this right now. They have countless new trucks just sitting, collecting dust, even from previous years. They need to cut production and they can't just keep pumping out more trucks. Where are they going to go? Another lawsuit surrounding Stellantis is shareholders believe that Stellantis at large has presented misleading inventory levels throughout the last year and a half, 2 years, meaning they have always painted the company to be in a much better position than what they truly were. So because of that, shareholders are actually filing suit against Stellantis for it. So we have a Ram 3500 heavy-duty turbo diesel here, Cummins, priced down about $7,000 off of MSRP. I'm not sure if you can see it well, but it was originally just under $96,000. Now it's $88,400. Over here we have another 3500, but not a dually, priced down again about $7,000 off of that MSRP. When you combine these astronomical price tags with current interest rates, even with excellent credit, you're still landing anywhere between a 7 and 10% interest rate. People can't keep up with that. If you were to finance that full amount, we'll say for this one here at $80,000 about, after tax, registration, all the additional fees, and your finance amount, you're paying over $100,000 with the current 9 to 10% interest rate. That's undoable for most people now. Well, this just might be the most expensive pickup on this entire lot. The sticker there in the window says it was just under $104,000. That just blows my mind for this Ram 3500 heavy duty dually. But we've allowed this to become the new norm. We've allowed this to become our reality. And well, people are voting with their pocketbooks right now. That's why you see a whole lineup of them here. People just can't afford it, and they don't want to waste their money on these. And I hate to say it like this, but what was once an iconic brand for America has become a laughing stock underneath the whole Fiat Chrysler Automotive Group umbrella. These Jeep Wranglers, man, they used to fly off the shelf. Right? They've always been a high production vehicle, but they would never just sit collecting dust, and not to mention they would never just sit collecting dust with a $10,000 off discount attached to it or a 0% interest rate. That would just never happen. One small positive thing of the current vehicle market is we are no longer seeing markups on desirable vehicles, right? So we have a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392 behind me. It comes with an astronomical price tag of over $103,000 being the MSRP. But once upon a time, not so long ago, these were coming with a $10,000, $15,000, or $20,000 markup over that sticker price. Thankfully, with the current market, we're no longer seeing that. In fact, we're seeing many of these discounted now, which is good to see. And did I say $10,000 off? I meant to say $16,000 off. It was over $61,000, and now we're just over $44,000 for this particular one. Oftentimes, these fun sports cars are generally seen as secondary or even third vehicles within the household, right? The fun weekend vehicles. And well, these are just sitting, collecting dust everywhere right now because people are just kind of sticking with what they need for now. They're not just wasting their money. Everywhere you look at this dealership, you just find more and more Wranglers and Grand Cherokees just tucked in the back. And many of these are $15,000 off. 0% interest over 72 months. I'm not sure if you can see that well, but this one here again is that 4xe, the model that nobody really wanted, nobody really even asked for it, but this is what we got, and this is what dealerships get now, and that's the unfortunate truth. And we've gotten to the point where dealerships are actually turning away allocations now. They're turning away allocations because we have so many carryovers from previous model years that are just sitting unsold. And well, it does a dealership no good to continue to build out their floor cost, right? So every month that turns over, it's like a small credit line that they have on their trucks and all their vehicles. They pay a small interest every amount, but that small interest adds up over month after month if they're not selling that inventory. That ultimately cuts into their profits heavily. Your average American family isn't going to comfortably buck up what it takes to buy one of these new Grand Wagoneers. These new Grand Wagoneers cost an arm and a leg and some. And it just blows my mind that we've allowed this to happen, right? Although they look cool, I think they look nice in some spec trims, but overall, people are just not interested in spending upwards of $90,000 to $100,000 for these things. Look at this one here. This one is over $110,000. I'm not sure if you can see it. They marked it down $10,000, but that is not enough to actually move this, I'm afraid. What do you guys think? And honestly, the dealerships with the largest amount of inventory on their lot right now, that is a bad sign. That means that they're not willing to offer big enough discounts, right? If they're not willing to offer that $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 off discount and lessen their profit margin or even lose a little bit on the vehicle, if they're not willing to do that, what does that say about the dealership? They should be able to do that. They should have ebbs and flows and be willing to bite the bullet when they need to. And now is one of those times where they need to do that in order to survive. If they keep kind of holding on, waiting for maybe pandemic days to come back where they can swindle people again, that's only going to hurt them in the long run. Because a lot of the dealerships who did deploy greedy tactics during the pandemic, during COVID, and charged markups and just took advantage of people, they are ultimately kicking themselves right now. They're wishing they hadn't gotten rid of their loyal customers, their returning customers, the people who had been going to their dealerships for decades with their families. They flicked them like boogers, unfortunately, many of them did. And now they're really regretting it and kicking themselves. You know, and thankfully this particular dealership, although they have a pretty large inventory, they seemingly are offering pretty incentivized discounts, right? So they're offering good discounts, and it appears on top of that, pretty good interest rates, right? So you got 0% incentivized interest rate in order to move some of this truck inventory for a number of those Silverados. So that is at least reassuring to see that efforts are being made. So being about that dad life myself, I'm always interested to see what vehicle manufacturers want for their full-size SUVs. We have a Tahoe here, Z71, and then a High Country Suburban. They want $73,000 for that particular one, but it being the Tahoe is a little bit smaller. I have 4 kiddos myself. A larger Suburban actually makes more sense for us. But for this High Country trim, it's a higher trim, of course, they want $93,000. I hate that that has become the norm, right? I mean, most young families cannot come out and fork over that kind of coin for a family hauler. I want to be fair here. I want to show you maybe a lesser trim. I actually prefer the look of this RST model. This is a Suburban as well. How much they want for it? They want over 78 grand for it. Still, way too much for my liking. You know, it's definitely saying something when brands even like Honda are struggling to make sales happen. They're having to offer these incentivized 3.9% interest rates on these Honda Pilots and the Honda Ridgelines here in order to try to move this inventory. But even then, they're beginning to stack up here. So much more scarce at this particular dealership, but they're beginning to stack up, even at Honda. Nissan has always kind of struggled a little bit with their sales, right? But nearly half of all Nissan dealerships across the entire US are losing money month to month. So that has been the case this year, and that is even difficult for Nissan to come to grips with. They've seen a loss in their stock, about 30% since March. I've said it a couple times on the channel, and I really mean it. The Nissan Frontier and Nissan Titan, I believe, are kind of last of their kind, right? They're the last of the naturally aspirated pickup truck options. You get a naturally aspirated 3.8 liter V6 in a Nissan Frontier, and you get a 5.6 liter V8 in that Titan there. And, well, the prices have not gone to the moon just yet, right? Whenever they come out with that new generation, the new redesign, likely with a turbocharged 4-cylinder, I hope not, but that will likely be the case. Like for the Frontier here, they will then bump up the price a ton, like we saw with the Toyota Tacoma. But for now, you can still get a trusty, reliable, naturally aspirated V6 in this Nissan Frontier. So I do believe it is good bang for your buck. Thankfully, with Nissan in general, it's not uncommon to have gotten a pretty good discount and incentivized interest rate since really the last several years. But right now, more than ever, you can definitely expect a tremendous deal. This one is at least being advertised at $5,000 off or a 0% for 60 months. I'm sure you can get both of them if it meant buying it today. You know, and honestly, when you look at so many of these vehicles on this particular dealership lot, this is a common sight. You see so many higher trimmed, higher spec'd options available. That is where the profit margin is made, right? So if they were to keep pumping out base model F-150s, F-250s, base model, not limiteds, not King Ranch, not Platinums, if they keep doing that, their profit margin shrinks tremendously. However, this is a byproduct of the pandemic, right? They wanted to get so many higher trimmed options because they can make more money, generate more money. But unfortunately nowadays, people can only afford the base model options. So technically speaking, having more base model, lesser trimmed options would technically make more money for a dealership. But that's a hard reality for them to come to grips with. It's kind of funny. I actually went to this one purposely thinking it was going to be less than the F350 dually here. But because it is a high output 6.7 liter power stroke here, you can tell by the red numbering down there on this F250, it is actually nearly $10,000 more. So over 94 grand for this particular Super Duty here. Blows my mind. Now more than ever, Americans need to focus and worry about the cost of insurance combined with the cost of fuel and of course the cost of the actual monthly payment for the vehicle. Now more than ever, right? Between the astronomically high interest rates, even with excellent credit, 7 to 10% interest, and if you have challenge credit, well, there's a chance that you're teetering toward 15 or 16% interest on a new vehicle purchase. That is awful. If you go to CarMax, you're teetering upward toward 23% interest rate. And we'll talk through what those examples could look like on a typical $50,000 purchase. I'll present that here in a minute if you're interested in hearing the different breakdown between those interest rates. But we're seeing so much of it here behind me, right? The cost of insurance has over doubled in the last 4 years across the US. In some states, just since last year, they saw a 52 or 54% increase since last year. Just 1 year, they saw that big of an increase. That becomes a very important piece, a critical piece of the financial puzzle for Americans. And beyond having a Bronco Raptor here, they nearly have about every other trim available. And well, that was a very uncommon sight throughout the last couple of years anyway. So this is what you would see at any Ford dealership right now. This isn't me poking at my local dealership. This is a very common sight, right? In fact, this particular dealership, hats off to them. They will move quite a bit and be very flexible in order to sell stuff right now. But the reality is inventory is outpacing demand. Look at that beautiful truck. Ermergerd. Guys, I understand I kind of pick on Toyota a little bit more than maybe what I should, but I do truly believe that the Toyota Tacoma here, the new 4th gen as of 2024, and the new 2022 and up Toyota Tundra are prime examples of the modern age, right? The modern vehicle market, right? You get less for your money, right? You're paying more and you get less for your money, right? The Toyota Tacoma here now has a mandatory 4-banger underneath the hood, a 2.4 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, or you can get the iForce Max version of it that has a battery pack strapped to it. But that's not all. They come with an astronomical price tag of over $55,000 generally for TRD off-road trims and TRD sports. But then you start looking at the TRD Pro and the Trail Hunter, the top trims, you're looking at $67,000 plus for those ones, when they used to be right around $52,000 just in 2023. So they outsource production to Mexico, we get a lesser quality product, a smaller engine in it, and overall just a lackluster vehicle across the board. And well, the Tundra, I won't beat it up because I beat it up plenty in other videos, but a huge engine recall in that one, right? And they still expect us to pay $15,000 to $25,000 more than the previous generation right there. That doesn't make any sense. And well, the previous generation had a bulletproof 5.7 liter V8 that everyone loved. And that new one, it's not even much more fuel efficient, if we're being honest with each other. So for that reason, it is not uncommon to be seeing $6,000 to $8,000 off discounts of MSRP on Toyota Tacomas right now, and up to $12,000, $13,000 off higher trim Toyota Tundras. That is a very common sight. So if you happen to be in a market, do not get hoodwinked into paying MSRP for these things. You can get a tremendous discount. So many of these TRD off-roads down here are teetering toward that $54,000, $55,000 mark. We have a limited here, right around that 55, I think it was 55, right? I remember looking at this one before. Yeah, just under 55,000 for this Toyota Tacoma Limited. People do not want to spend that kind of money for a mid-sized pickup truck, right? That's just a common sense thing. So it blows my mind that Toyota thought that this was going to be wildly accepted across the board, because it has not been, and for good reason. People are voting with their pocketbook. Throughout the last couple of years, dealerships, their main worry was trying to convince you or trick you into paying an inflated price on a vehicle, right? Whether that be MSRP on many vehicles or even an ADM or additional dealer markup on desirable trims. That was their biggest challenge throughout the pandemic, right? But not now. Now they have the challenge of A, just selling the vehicle to you at a pretty good discount just to move the inventory, and then B, now you got to get approved by a financial institution to actually buy the thing. As I mentioned in a previous video, the last 2 months, 1 out of 5 auto loans that were applied for were denied. Banks are clamping down. They're not just dishing out loans to people to buy these vehicles, because we've seen such a high repossession rate. Over 23% increase over the last few months, just in repos alone. Pretty sad. The thing that saddens me most with Toyota is I can't help but feel like they priced their target audience or their target demographic out of the market, right? They priced them entirely out of the market. People have always bought Toyotas for 3 reasons, right? Their reliability being the most important, their simplicity, and their affordability. And all 3 of those things have gone out the window with this new wave, this new generation of vehicles. It's pretty saddening to me. And the sad fact of the matter is people now feel as though they have to buy one of these vehicles, these more cheaper options, a new Toyota Camry or perhaps even a lower trim Toyota Prius for that $30,000 range, right? This has become what people feel like they need to buy because they just cannot afford or keep up with the payments on those $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 pickup trucks over there, the Tundra in particular. They can't keep up with that. When you combine the huge insurance payments that you need to pay every month, it just doesn't make sense. When, well, with this anyway, you're going to save a little bit on fuel cost, and that has become the smallest factor amongst the entire equation, which is pretty sad to say out loud. But 25 grand for this particular Corolla LE. The Camry here, another LE trimmed one, and just under $32,000 for this one. But when you get that kind of fuel economy, it does kind of help justify it, right? But people are buying more of these now, not because they necessarily want it or it's the most desirable vehicle, but because it is the one that makes most sense. And honestly, I don't think it's going to be too long until every single dealership just kind of looks like this, right? A bunch of smaller, compact vehicles, fuel-efficient vehicles, compact SUVs, little hatchbacks. This is going to become our reality, unfortunately, in the coming decade or two. And I hope that's not the case, but the way we are going right now, the trajectory we are on, this is it. So let's pretend that you came in here and you bought one of these Toyota Tacomas here for $50,000. You have a $54,000 one right here and a $55,000 one right there. I'm gonna play a little game with you here to kind of show you just how huge the difference can be with the interest rate that you receive. So we'll chalk it up to three different loans here. One, the modern American loan, which people are generally getting right now, about 10% interest rate. Even with good or great credit, you're getting a 10% interest rate. The second one I'll walk through real quick is a CarMax loan. With challenge credit, you're gonna be paying 23% interest on that vehicle. It's an extreme example, but most people who go to CarMax generally have challenge credit. They're paying that 23 up to 23% interest rate. And then we'll talk through the good old days of having maybe a 2% interest rate on your vehicle purchase. And this will be over a 60-month loan, pretending you have $2,500 in registration fees and have a 7% interest rate. I'm gonna give you these exact numbers for each of those interest rates for a $50,000 Toyota Tacoma. So believe it or not, with that modern American loan at a 10% interest rate, 7% sales tax, and paying $2,500 in registration and miscellaneous fees at purchase, you are spending a whopping $69,741 over that 60-month loan, right? So each month you're paying about $1,061. So just under $1,100 for the modern American loan. Let's talk through that CarMax loan real quick. At a 23% interest rate, again on the same $50,000 vehicle with a 7% sales tax, which is pretty common, let me make that clear. $2,500 registration and miscellaneous fees, you are paying over $90,000, $90,571 to be exact, over that 60-month loan, bringing your monthly payment over $1,400, $1,409 per month for that with that terrible interest rate. Huge amount more than that modern American loan. And then finally, the good old days loan at a 2% interest rate and a 7% sales tax, you're gonna be spending $58,583 for that particular $50,000 Toyota Tacoma. So $58,000 feels a lot better, a lot better than that over $90,000 overall purchase price. Pretty crazy, huh? So I've said it before and I'll say it again, you as the buyer are definitely in the driver's seat. Patience will definitely serve to your benefit because as time moves forward, the inventory levels just keep racking up at a compounding rate. So being patient will definitely prove to be in your best interest. Let me paint a picture of the inventory levels right now. So as of September 2024, we have 2.84 million available vehicles, new vehicles within the US. This time last year in 2023, we had 2.21 million vehicles available. And to go back just a little bit further, to kind of teeter into COVID times a little bit, in September of 2022, we had 1.32 million. So we keep seeing that compounding growth, and it's going to continue. It's going to continue until dealerships decide to slash the prices and actually cut into their profits and actually lose a little bit on their vehicles, because losing a little bit on their vehicle sale actually helps them out in the long run, right? It allows for more allocation rates to come through, and it actually allows them to clear off that flooring cost that they pay each month, right? Because that can be extremely painful for a dealership to keep paying the flooring cost on countless vehicles across their lot that they're paying each month. We talked about Stellantis seeing nearly a 60% drop in their stock since March. Nissan, they had a 30% drop about since March. Toyota, nearly 40% drop in their stock since March. Pretty crazy. So guys, I'll wrap up the video there, and I'll beat the drum over and over again. I do truly believe that we're going to see things get worse for the car market before they get better. And I don't say that with joy. However, it does help us as the consumer come in and get a great deal. So you, like I mentioned, you should be patient right now. Come in here, never go into a dealership and negotiate a deal and buy same day. You can go into a dealership, check it out, negotiate, then leave, and I assure you that same dealership will be calling you that day or the next day trying to get you back in there for an even better deal, right? Or you can go up the street and say, hey, this dealership gave me this deal on this vehicle. I know you have the same one. Are you willing to beat it, and by how much? And I guarantee it, you can get a phenomenal deal right now if you were to continue leaning forward with that tactic. So hopefully you guys find some value in this type of content. I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to tune in, especially if you make it to this point. I do respectfully request that you consider liking and subscribing. I always feel ugly asking it, but I do truly appreciate it. So thanks for watching as always. Until next time.